Okay, so we had a request to make contact with Olga's higher self today. Would this be permitted?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so how would she know that this information is authentic?
She'll feel it, and it all will resonate with her.
Yes. Okay, would you like to take us to any scenes, or should we go straight into the questions?
There's no visuals at this time, but when something comes, we will let you know.
Okay, so her first question was about Egypt. Did she live there as a pharaoh? When she did her Akashic records, she had them read, and it was told that she was a pharaoh. And she wants, is this relevant now for her life now? And did she have a life in Egypt?
She did have a life in Egypt where she drew strongly from, and things that she is using now in her lifetime. But as we could say, it was not as luxurious or a pleasant lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
It is more the lessons that she learned while being there that she is drawing through now.
Yes. Can you tell her more about that life?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But she was a very young pharaoh, started out in her earlier years, but did not make it to the later stages. As we could say, one would say in your terms, older. It was more, as we could say, in younger affairs. But as she went, she was trying her best to do what was needed of her. There was not mass chaos at that time, and she looked well after the people, but it was more of not understanding what the needs were of the people.
Mm-hmm.
She gave and did what she thought is what was needed and what was taught to her, but never giving what was needed. As we would say, he never gave what was needed for the people. In terms of food was always sought for, but helping and listening to them and really taking into consideration what they needed for their structure. It was more this that the woman was not seen of value at that time, and the men were more valued depending on the family and the household. And therefore, the rankings of the people put them in different positions of how they would receive gifts from. We would not say gifts, this is not an accurate term. We would say they would receive luxuries from the temples.
What do you mean luxuries?
If they would do certain things or finish certain jobs, they would receive luxuries, which would mean household items and things like that that they could use. They would get chairs and tables made from the finest wood. They would receive different things.
Mm-hmm.
It would not be as what you would see as luxury now, but for one to have more of, as we could say, we would not call it bedding, but a type of bedding and a type of area where one could sleep that was not mainly on the floor. This was considered luxury.
Yes. And was this in modern day Egypt, or where was this life?
This was not in more of, as we could say, modern. This was quite far in the beginning stages of Egypt. More, as we could say, not at the most precedent time.
Mm-hmm.
It was more in the beginning phases when Egypt was starting. This is more before Cleopatra's time.
Yes. Is there more or less a timeline to this?
Yes, as we could say that this timeline is a part of Egypt way before the pyramids were even constructed. It was the way that Egypt was before that.
Okay. And why is it important for her to have seen that scene, or to have gotten information about that life?
Because it's about the relationships that she uses and how she would use those relationships now. It is to see the people and to see everyone around her. It is that construct of helping others and not just helping them on the needs of what they can give, but what is needed for them. It is to say that the world now has become a very greedy place where many take from others and don't give back, and none are making an effort to try and make it a fair world, which is difficult to say because it could never be truly fair. But this is part of what she brings in, is to bring in that, to see those who want to be seen and those who want to be heard, to help them in certain ways. The attribute that she gained was to be able to have the knowledge of knowing of how to help these types of structures, but it is something that is not often used.
So how should she use that to help people? You're saying to listen to people, to see people. What does that look like practically?
It is to work with them, and by truly listening to them, when people are giving a structure or a form and they are giving information, it is not that they are giving information in a sense to complain, but when listening to them, she can pick up exactly what is their need, even if it's something they cannot verbalize, and therefore she can help them. It is in a sense of putting people in a direction where they can connect to themselves or just understand what's going on around them.
And she also saw, when meditating, she saw herself sitting in a pyramid and the walls were covered in symbols and letters and the light came from the symbols. And when she opened her eyes, it disappeared. It was quite amazing about 5 years ago. What was that? Was it like a similar life or what was that?
It is a different space construct. Back then, in that time of Egypt and before the original pyramids that are here, the type of way that the structures have been was a lot of interdimensional play and dimensional structures where they had chambers and they could lock in with their frequency, their information, and all of their scrolls that they needed. This was one of their gifts. And this is one of the rooms that she has access to.
Does she still have access to it?
Yes, she can still draw from it, but she has to reach a certain frequency in order to open it up because it's a lot of information. That is why during the meditational state it was easier for her to access. But this is something that takes practice for her to be able to access all of those symbols and unlock the frequencies.
So in that time when she was in that room, how would she get information from these symbols? How does that work, that process?
So when she is sitting inside of the room and she's seeing all of the symbols, it is just to be calm and be still and allow them to start to move. They would start to circulate around off the walls and move almost as if they are not a part of the walls. And then this information will start to come in and translate throughout the mind. It is to say that even if she doesn't understand the language, it will immediately make sense in her mind, and then she will get all of the information.
And what is it about these symbols that carry information?
It is information on what is locked there. It is to say that that time was not as we would want to describe a simpler time, but it was a more of a connected time. There was more of a connection to the earth than what there is now. And all of the tricks and everything that is in there, even of how Egypt became Egypt. Egypt was never been flourishing in certain ways, we would say, like the farming and the different knowledge of bringing the green there and making it grow in a barren area. This is the type of knowledge and information that is there. There is so much that can be unlocked and helped to the fullest potential. Even information on how to harness energy from the planet and keep it as a reserve in order to grow food, and also create different means of running water that is clean for all to use. These were the types of things, and how to build the structure of the cities and how to make it an area that can keep the vibration. But the problem that they had at that time is that they did not listen to the people. They did not see the value of the people in these areas, and therefore they ranked them as to be the lowest and then moved to the highest. And then many were enslaved at that time, and that frequency kept a very low vibration in the area, which then kept the area from reaching its full potential of that time.
So there's a kind of superiority complex.
Yes.
Okay, but how did these codes, so these codes that they look at would give them information as to very practical human problems in the cities or in the civilization?
More in how to run the civilization and how to run the cities and the constructs of how to lead the people. What has taken place is at that time, each pharaoh would receive this knowledge and information. They would be groomed for this talent from a younger age, learning to practice to open and receive. They would go into a dark room, the darkest room in the temple, with no light, and they would sit for hours, no water, no food, and they would just sit there projecting the light from the mind to access these rooms. Each pharaoh had access to that room. It's not that there's a specific room for each one. It is more the knowledge that gets passed down to them in order to access. But later Egypt, the pharaohs didn't want to access these rooms anymore, so they appointed priest-like people to go in and receive this information. And that is when Egypt really took a turn and did not reach its full potential because of the interference, because it needs to be done through the pharaohs themselves so that they could lead the people right. But when that change took place, it is almost as if it blocked what the potential could be for Egypt.
And then why was this kind of extraterrestrial information, or what were these? Where would the information come from?
Yes, there was more, as we could say, extraterrestrial in nature. A lot from, as we could say, the avians did release some information there, as well as the cat-like people, but there wasn't too many interactions with them in the time that he was the pharaoh.
Okay. And why was it important for the pharaoh specifically to receive this information?
Because then the pharaoh could understand what it needs to be the leader, what it needs to give to the people. As we could say that this was before the time of the pyramids. So when this time that he was the pharaoh, when he was there, one could say that this is before the destruction of Atlantis, before Atlantis fell. There was such a big connection, but also a disconnection between the earth and the earth's people. But these pharaohs got this information in order to create a new type of construct opposite to what Atlantis was doing at that time and all the other places.
Okay. And so then they didn't want to do that job anymore. But what is it? What is the connection? Because she saw, herself meditating in a pyramid, but you're saying this kind of pharaoh life was pre-pyramid. What's the connection?
Yes, it doesn't mean that pyramid is not a pyramid. We are describing the pyramids that are of current now on your planet. They were not constructed at that time, but there were other pyramids, but they got destroyed, and then the new ones got made in order to change the construct, because of the alignments of the stars was not the same at that time. But these were different types of pyramids. They were not, as we could say, extremely triangular. They were different shapes. They had more sharp edges on the top, and it looked almost like a spiral moving in, almost as if one could take the pyramid and slant it and then stack many on them, and they would create this type of effect.
Okay.
They would bring in the light coming in from the morning, and that would charge this frequency field, and they could use this. There was a lot of information that was given to them also about how they could travel back and forth to the stars and what they could do from there, and how they could create civilization on this planet to thrive and be healthy.
Yes.
But not in his time, only after he passed, and we could say it would be more or less We would say not hundreds of years, but close enough to say that a couple of 100 years later, then the exchange started where they did not want to receive this information anymore because of the pharaohs did not find it of value, because they did not want to be responsible for that as well. The pharaohs used to be the high priests as well. They used to do everything. That was their role and responsibility, to not just lead the people and be the king of the people, but to also lead them through the spiritual, also to teach them about everything. He would be involved in everything. They would be there for the farmers. They would have to make the decision. It was not left to the farmers or to other people to control these constructs. It was all the pharaoh's responsibility to do everything, to make sure. And later on, the pharaohs did not want to have the responsibility, but they wanted to be more only the ruler and not to do the physical labor.
Okay. But was it a specific bloodline that became a pharaoh? With, how did that process work? Who were these people that were allowed to do that?
It was involved with the bloodlines, but not always. At that time, the pharaohs were not those who were born. They were the ones who were chosen from birth. They could be born from any family, and they would have these abilities as children. They would say that they would be the babies when they were born. They did not cry. It was the little boys who did not cry. They would just look around the room and look at you with the eyes of knowing, and then they would be groomed and shaped for that.
Okay. So kind of like old soul, kind of psychic, almost Dalai Lama energy.
Yes, they all had abilities. They all could move things with their mind. They all could communicate with the animals and communicate with the land. They were the sacred ones. Therefore, they could help the area thrive. They were good at that, but it is only later where Egypt saw its fall. But for that time, that connection where he was the pharaoh, it was a lot easier. But the only thing that they could not manipulate or manage was disease in the area, because they did not have all of this knowledge on medicines. They were more reliant purely on frequency, and that did heal. But when people made themselves sick with what they thought in their minds, they could heal that. But when people did it with different things that they took in or not being clean enough, then they couldn't fix it with the energy at that time because of how the construct was shaped.
Like if they took food and alcohol or whatever, would that change the structure?
Yes, but also the types of foods. They did not eat a lot of meats at that time. And then some started to do this, and this changed the properties of the vibrations in their frequency fields, and therefore the pharaoh could not heal them. And this is what caused an uprising in people at times, because how could he not heal them when he was supposed to be the healer as well? They had all the responsibilities.
So you're saying because they took in this kind of organic earthly substance, it almost needed another earthly organic substance to heal, for instance, medicine?
Yes, because at that time it did not match the frequency that they were taught to use. They were only taught to use a certain frequency that they could access from these rooms. So they could only receive one level of frequency, a certain hertz that they could use in order to heal the vessels or reprogram them. But when other things came into the vessels, the one side of the vessel will still be at a good frequency, but the other side more dense. And this created a change in the field. And when he would try to heal those, he would damage the vessels even more. Some perished. And this created a disconnect between what he wanted to do.
Okay, we need to get to the next questions, but it seems like this is quite an interesting life. Is there anything else she needs to know today about this life to, help her, guide her?
It is to say that what she could do now with her information that she can receive to access these places is really a part of something bigger than what she understands. And this is to help the healing of where she is right now at this time, because of what the people need. The people are uprising, and it is the people who are being suppressed at this time. And all of those ones who create, as we could say, the food structures, they need to relearn the healing as well in order to put that frequency back into what people take. So what she can do is, by accessing this information through her meditations, she does not need to do lengthy meditations, but just she needs to be good with her practice in order to completely focus herself and visualize herself back inside of the room, exactly the way that she saw it the first time around, and allow herself to be there and call forth the energy. There are many scrolls that could help now with the jump and the ascension, and even just with everyday life and helping people around her. She doesn't have to physically communicate with them, but when accessing this information and bringing it forth, she releases it in the field, and it is almost as if she can push those waves in and around, and those who are more connected or needing the information will receive it. And that way she can be an extension.
Okay. Well, that was one of her questions. How can she practically help, people around her? For instance, her family members, some of them have cancer. There's a doctor she knows that has cancer. It seems to have already reached metastasis. How could she, help these people? Because she's very interested in healing and helping.
Yes, because in this lifetime, that was one of the main interests that the Pharaoh took place. But not just the healing of the people, but the land. And that is the same with what she can do now, is by accessing all of these frequencies that are there, she can heal the foods by healing the foods for them. And it does not mean that she needs to go outside and heal a tree or heal the physical plant. But when she holds the food, she can communicate with it, and she can set the vibration. She can ask the foods, when ingested, to help the vessel to fight these things away. Eventually, she can get to the point where she could put her hands on them, but that is more of a belief structure, and it is hard to hold on to that type of healing because many don't believe that they have the power to do so.
But she said she already feels the energy in her hands, and it's quite strong.
But she needs to believe that she can draw from that healing and touch them and activate that healing. But at this current time, her belief is not there. And this is why she got all this information, is to believe and understand that she has the power within her hands to do so. But she can put it in the food for them. If she goes and places it directly over the body, she can heal. But there is a way to do it without causing different constructs within those vessels, because she needs to understand that many things are done from own free will from the people, and not all the time can things just get healed and let go. The energy is not the same. Right now, each shift that's taking place on your planetary alignment, it is not the same as it was a year ago. The constructs are changing, the people are changing, and therefore it is a safer mechanism to put that frequency into the food and have them eat it. And she does not even have to physically touch it. She can sit remotely and send it to what they are taking.
Okay, so you're saying she's doing distance healing almost on the food?
Yes.
Is there any practical ways, or first practical ways, and second, how could she change a belief system to actually believe in this stuff?
The belief is to understand that she has been doing this for many, many years, that this lifetime that she had, she was chosen for that. And now again, she is chosen to do this. And that is why she had the glimpse to see this, so that she knows that this is who she is. And she needs to believe that she has this ability. It is just to trust herself and know that she can do it because she has done it before.
Okay. So can you just give her a practical step how she can do this? It's almost like a Reiki, right? Distance Reiki or, in-person Reiki.
She could either do it in distance or in person. This is just on her own preference and what she would like to do. But all she needs to do is, if we could say, for example, if she would say to someone, you need to go and eat an apple first thing in the morning, then what she does is, as she sits before the sun rises, she could visualize the apple and speak to the apple and say, I'm putting this energy of healing inside of you to help fix and balance that out within their vessels. And I thank you that you would help, and just release it. And therefore, when they eat the apple, this frequency will travel through their vessels. And they would do that as a daily practice. She doesn't need to daily sit and do it, but she can just visualize that every morning when they are eating that apple, it is the same one that they are taking in.
So is it kind of like a love frequency that would be, sent through wherever there's problems in the body? How does that work?
We would say not love, but more of a healing construct. It is more to say that the frequency needs a specific type. There is a word that you use for this. We cannot find the word. It is something that must be done beforehand. It is an intention. Is this the correct term?
Yes, set the intention.
Yes, an intention on this foods, to say that each time that that person is going to eat this apple, they are going to receive the healing from my hands, because she has the access to the healing. And it's not love. She can send it with love, but that healing frequency is a certain type. It is not the same as any other person on the planet. It is only certain groups who have access to this type of frequency of healing. It is to say that it is a type of hertz. It is, as we could say, 878766. This frequency, hertz, when it is stimulated inside of a spiral, it creates 3 different types of vortexes, which then can bounce off and cause different types of healing. One is a physical, one can be emotional, and the other is bringing the two together in one space. This is a very good frequency to think of when healing.
How would one know what when you've actually reached that 87 that frequency?
That frequency will only come from the hands. It does not come from anywhere else inside of her body. And when it reaches in the palms, it becomes it is a light frequency, but it will feel very heavy. And it is almost to say that the palms will start to shake. She will feel it glitch through. And that's when it is reaching that stage. She can even put them together and visualize, or even hold an apple where she is.
Yes.
And then she can project it in, and she will feel it get warm and heavy, and it will lock around the apple. And then the intention must be that this frequency gets locked around every apple that specific person is taking in.
Does it need to be an apple? Can it be anything, like a hamburger, even junk food, or what does it have to be?
It can only work with, as we could say, natural-based foods. It cannot hold in anything other than that. Reason being is because of those are dead foods. If we could say this of a hamburger, or this of anything that is cooked past a certain point. But when it is a fruit or a vegetable, it still holds a connection to the earth, even though it is not still alive. It is still receiving a frequency, and it is getting lower and lower and lower and lower until it starts to rot. And that is why if they get fresh fruits or vegetables and she places that on them, it charges them and enhances them, and therefore they will receive more healing.
And she could probably test it with herself, right? What about water? That would probably be, one can easily program water in with this kind of way.
Yes, water is the easiest one to do. And this can also be done in that way.
Okay.
But it is also to make sure it is the right type of water, because not all water is the right type. Some water is missing all the natural mineral compounds within them and is stripped from it. And a stripped water is a water that cannot give a value, because when one is healing and inside of the vessel, the frequency base is needed to be a certain construct. Let us take, for example, this of minerals. They vibrate at certain frequencies, and when one ingests the minerals, that frequency will go to that area and heal, because it takes time to break down and relieve into that construct. And even when one is taking in water, the body is not looking for the clean water, it is looking for the mineral compound base within the water in order to charge itself. It is like little crystals.
Yes. Okay, so she needs to be working with the food in that way, you're saying. Is there any other way she should be working with this energy?
It is for now to only work with the food. The more that she practices within her meditation-like state, the more information she will receive on the healing. But she has to be more in practice to receive that. It is not all going to come at once, and it is a lot of information. The more she does this of sitting in, we would not say it must be daily, but more to make sure that she does it weekly in order to bring in and bring forth this information. She would then later at the stage not need to program into the foods, but then she could use her physical hands to do so.
Oh, okay.
But because that energy construct is not of a normal construct within what is already in all of the vessels, she could hurt more than heal if she doesn't understand and unlock it. That's why by placing it first into something, then it can set better and it works off of what's already in that programming. And later on, she can get the coding of how to do it with the hands, and then she can just touch and it will go. But it is something that she would have to work towards. It is not something that is just going to be given at first.
Why is that?
Because she needs to unlock.
Okay.
That is how it works. Each symbol that was given that is inside of the chamber must be unlocked. That is why each one of the pharaohs, when they were younger, they would get taught how to do this, how to live. Because if they do not live from the right heart or do the right things or live with a clear and clean mind, that symbol will not recognize them and it will not unlock.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Anything else about that, this healing work?
This is all we will give for now, as it is very important for her to start with one base and move into the next, and not to want to do everything at once. We know that it is an amazing thing to want to do, but it is to say that one needs to first be able to walk before one runs.
Okay, and then this healing energy, is it something she's visualizing going in, or how does that work?
When she works with it, she will feel it in her hands and how it locks around that item. That is why at first she could do it like that and lock items for those people. Even if she wants to lock those physical ones and give those ones to them, that would work just the same. Later on, she will become stronger where she does not need to physically hold something. She could do it just mentally, and therefore it would get better. But it is not something that's going to take place immediately. She will know when it locks because she will feel the charge. At first, when she tries it, she will feel it in the hands and she will feel it weakly go, but it will come back, almost as if she's not successful in pushing that field over. But she just needs to practice more.
And why does the energy accumulate in the hands?
Because that is where they got it. It's because of the center points. There is 2 points in each of the hands, in her hands, and they use that points to draw in from that field.
Okay.
These types of pharaohs is what we will refer to help the construct for the understanding of the information. But these specific pharaohs who were born, and not just in Egypt, but they were born all over the world, they were ones who were very, as we could say, not majestic in nature, but they were the ones who were so connected to the fields of the planet, and not just the planet. It is to say that they understood a deeper level of exchange, and they were tasked as being the keepers of this transition, because the other people, even though there are different constructs, they are not born with the same abilities. they are not born with the same knowledge because they had to go through the process of the planet. So let us say, for example, a person would have to eat in order to get sustenance, where these pharaohs or these people, these beings, would just touch the foods and they would get sustenance. That was part of their ability. But the everyday people could not do that. And they could take it from that and put it inside of the people's bodies. They were so connected to these exchanging fields that they did not have to work through the normal construct of the people. They could immediately bypass it because they understood the coding of it.
Sounds like very talented individuals, but now she comes into this life and it seems like they're, it's one has to almost learn that information.
It is to say that yes, this is a true in nature, but also not. It is not a relearning. That is why when they are born with the knowledge already. It is embedded inside of their bodies and coded. But because when she was born in this life, there was no one there to guide her through this as a child. And this did cause many effects within herself that she did not understand because she was not the same as her parents, as the people around her, as her family, as her friends. And on the inside, this created an internal battle as a child because she already knew of these things. But the more she was indoctrinated into the world, the more she created a disbelief. And that is why we are telling her to activate that belief again, because it is not something to relearn. It is just something to open.
Yes. But she's saying she's got problems, with her, third eye opening. She wants to channel light beings. She wants to help people, but it's hard for her to express herself, spiritually. She struggles with hypnosis and visualizations. Is there any way she can, open her third eye? Is her pineal gland calcified, or what is blocking her from, getting that information?
It's this belief, but also, as to say, with her construct and what is happening with her ability does not come from there. Her ability to see is from the hands. That is why, as we would say, the mundane human in nature has a certain construct of their frequency fields, but there are different types of human beings here which draw from different types of things. With her, she's got two fields within her hands, which are eyes. That is what she uses to see. That is why when she works with it, so she must work more with trying to visualize through her hands instead of through here, because it will never come from here, because of the type of construct that she is.
But how is it that she then visualizes with, this kind of almost third eye in the hand? How does that work?
So it is to say, to take the same principle of, instead of trying to create one's focus from here, to visualize in the mind, to picture and visualize that her mind is behind her hands. So let us say if she would lie like this and use and visualize that in her hand is the construct that she could look through. The tool is in the hand. It is not within the head. She still has that, but it's not going to activate, and she's not going to see in that way.
But
it is a very hard one to describe because it is not normal. It is to say that she must create the perception of looking instead of with the eyes in the hands, almost as if her eyes, each eyeball is sitting within the hands and she's using it to look while her eyes are closed.
But how will she then be able to, channel light beings? Or is this part of her path, or?
It is to say that she will be able to open up construct, and yes, she will be able to channel beings, but there is not a specific group or something that she needs to channel. It will be more just out of curiosity. She can, at that stage, when she starts opening them, whichever beings are of a higher light around her, they will come and say hello. This happens with many of humans when they are working with their eyes. It is not saying that it is always a specific connection that needs to take place. So by opening this, she will activate that ability and she will be able to see beings and light beings and different kinds of constructs. But it is not to say that those are beings that she has to go and work with. She will find that when she opens her hands and she starts looking through them, she will be drawn more to go back to the pyramids, to go back inside of that room, because all of those symbols is different light codings and networks that she will receive, and that will be part of her purpose that she brings in here. But we cannot give her this information at this time because she has to first get herself there in order to bring in the light.
But does she have any other spiritual gifts, that she can activate now?
We do not want to tell her about these because we want her to only focus on one structure, because it is easy to get lost in the fantasy of what one can do instead of taking action and doing this. Does this make sense in an accurate way for us to describe?
Yes, well, you said it was like the one thing gets activated, then the next thing, then the next thing. But one needs to focus on the one which is most dominant, natural for the person in the first place, which seems to be this almost clairvoyance, but through the hands.
Yes. And she will realize that it is going to be easier for her. She's going to be able to pick up things quicker. And through this, it is almost to say that through the palms, they are receivers. Think of it as a type of, as we could say, receiving mechanism, that it sends out a frequency and receives in, and it comes in the top, just as we could say 2 fingers underneath from the middle finger is the first connection, and then give a finger space and the next one is there. If she pays attention and she tries to feel them, the first one is a receiving in, it is the eye. The second one is this receiver out. So therefore, she must focus more on the upper ones when she is trying to see, and almost as if she's absorbing that frequency through there in order to open up so that she can start seeing it in her mind. And therefore she will feel it more. It does not mean it is at first going to come as pictures, but she can change the construct of how that energy gets absorbed, and she can choose.
Yes. Okay, anything else about how she can work with her hands?
The easiest technique that we will give for her to go and work with is if she places them on each other and first just tries to move the energy to and from and feel it move through the 2 on the top and 2 at the bottom. And she can go and play like this in order to start activating the different fields.
So what does that look like then? How does that energy move? Can you just use an example?
So when she sits in this way and she moves from the first hand into the other hand, she will feel the frequency. The energy would give almost a glow type of effect. It doesn't mean that it is heated in nature. It will later start to cause a sensation, but it's almost as if she will feel type of a glowing effect. And then when she feels it in the one hand, she pushes it into the other. And therefore it comes down, and then she pushes it out the bottom too. And it's almost as if she is just shifting that ball that is glowing to and from each section, and that will strengthen the ability to use them.
Okay, yes. Get the ball rolling.
Yes.
Okay, so just getting onto another topic. So she took quite a big dose of mushrooms, and but at home by herself. And then she had like kind of information came through about aliens, and she got quite afraid because she felt like the aliens wanted to take over her brains. And in her Akashic Records reading, they said that she was abducted by aliens, when she was younger. And after that, she's had a great fear that they want to take possession of her again, and she's too scared to meditate. What happened here, and why did it come through?
It is not that they want to take over her brain, but they are very curious about her because of the way that her energy and her frequency moves with inside of her body. There are multiple groups of extraterrestrial beings that are fascinated with her. And they got permission in order to study how her frequency moves through her body. Because of that type of structure, as we could say, we will refer to the type of life inside of this of Egypt as the prehistoric life when we communicate now. They were fascinated because not many prehistoric type of beings are left on the planet at current, and they were not allowed to study them or be in physical communication with how their vessels worked at that time. They were only allowed to work face to face with them. But because now the frequency fields are different and they cannot be in the same vicinity, they wanted to study and understand this and see how they could access different healings from this. But they got a little too eager in a way to harness this information, which then overwhelmed her as a child, which then caused this fear, which then created the fear within her, which then locked it. But they were not trying to do harm. They were just trying to learn, and they got granted permission to do so. But because the physical vessel does not understand at that time what is taking place, it becomes a trauma, if we can say.
Was there like an abduction and studies in that sense, or how does it work?
They took the physical vessel onto their ship, and then they were just seeing, they did not do anything where they would hurt the vessel, but they used different energy forms of projecting different lights into the vessel to see how it would absorb it and how it would let it out and what would happen with the hands. But during this process, she was awake in her mind and she was present with it and she knew what was going on, but it was overwhelming. And even though she trusted, the overwhelmingness created the fear, but they had to remove the memory when they put her back, and all that the vessel remembered was the fear.
Okay, and who gave them permission to, perform these studies?
Us, the higher selves.
Okay.
It wasn't a study in nature, in, as we could say, to hurt, but this group, as we could say, we would tell you their name. They are the Anshar group.
And what do they look like?
The Anshar.
Yes.
Yes, they live in the fourth dimensional space. And this specific group lives in the mountains of the planet. And they did not come to harm, but they wanted to understand a new form of healing of this hurts that they wanted to use for their people to help heal the planet, because they are very focused in helping the healing of the physical Gaia. And then there was not many to be able to study from, because they were of older in nature on the planet, and because they are older, they block these abilities already within their vessels. But when she was younger, she was more open and the energy was moving, and she did not yet create that block in her mind.
Okay, so when she took these mushrooms, why was it necessary for this, information to come through?
When she took the mushrooms, it wasn't the same group that came through. It is just that at that time when she ate them, she opened up her mind and she opened herself. The best to describe is it's almost to say that when one is inside of the construct of frequency fields, one's energy is at different types of hertz and frequencies. And when one activates the pituitary gland or the pineal gland, one opens and shines like a light. And if there are beings around the area, they become curious and come and look. It does not mean that they are negative in nature. It doesn't mean this, but because they know that the human does not know that they are there. So they come and talk to the conscious construct and try to see in the fields and come inside, as we could say, the subconscious, and talk more with the subconscious effect. But because at that time and through that state, the conscious, we would not call it the conscious mind, but we would say the human mind is conscious of what is going on in the subconscious. And therefore, she saw and felt that interaction and felt like they're trying to take over because they are not in her mind, but in the subconscious mind.
Okay, so there was no energy that tried to possess her or attach to her?
No, they did not try to attach to her, but they were, we would not say in negative state, but they were also, as we could say, in a wrongful state, because they were not supposed to do that without permission. So they were in there and connecting to the mind to also learn because of the way her signature is. She has a different type of field. So they are curious because it doesn't look like the normal fields. But they did not have permission to go and talk to her. But because she opened that space, then she allowed that interaction. And that is why it is not to say that it is prohibited. But when she does these types of things, and especially with the mushrooms, it is to create a lock. Many don't understand that when you open the construct of these glands, you have to be specific in telling them in what is allowed and not allowed. And it is to say that when I take this, it is going to open, and only those who have permission to access can communicate with me. Or else you allow it for anything that is in the vicinity that is moving past to interact. And some of them are not so benevolent. And some of them are not negative or positive. They are neutral. And they are just curious. But we would say their curiosity is one that they will sometimes extend to a point that makes a being uncomfortable because they understand that you do not understand, if this makes sense.
So it's like opening up a door. So, but the next time she needs to be more, set the intention as to only those that the higher self allows or allowed in to give information.
And it's to say that she could hold the mushroom and put it by the chest, and then she says, when I open this construct and I allow my mind, I'm doing this specifically to connect with my spiritual aspects and all those who are only permissioned in helping my spiritual journey grow and to gather information for what I need and then use it. It needs to only be used as a sacred thing, not as a continuous thing, because you just keep opening doors and energy and you do not understand when the access. It is to try to give it in a way that is going to not be at such a highest construct, so we will give it in a baby construct. Think of it as there is multiple balls on top of each other, like a Russian doll effect. A ball within a ball within a ball within a ball within a ball. And each ball is rotating at the same speed in a different direction, opposite from each other. But each of these balls have holes in certain places. So sometimes when one is coming over the other, they overlap and then they open a hole where these two planes can see and meet. So even when taking these things at that specific time, whatever constructs are open is what one is going to interact with. And if you do not set the intent, you do not allow the field. So let us say if the intention is set and one is in the construct, then when one of these things come over, it is almost as if there's a film over the whole so that one can see and the other can see, but there can be no travel between the two because the intention was set, the seal was made. But many don't do that. And some open and get a benevolent one, and then some open and the opposite takes place because it is moving on all sides. And that can be quite traumatic for the physical being.
Okay, so also when she did another mushroom ceremony, but she did it with a woman, who facilitates these things, she was told that she has a secret or knows a secret, or she is a secret, but she doesn't know what it's about. She was also told that she would help many people as a healer. What has happened there?
It is these symbols. We are not going to give too much information because if we give it too far forth, she's not going to put in the work, because isn't the journey about receiving the information? But locked in these symbols is those type of constructs on the planet before, we will say, the seal took place.
What do you mean the seal?
The seal that happened after Atlantis, that happened after the planet. The planet was constructed in a certain way. The planet was made in order to be a specific type of frequency. We are told we are not allowed to give information on this because this will come to you at a later time. But what we will give is that after what took place on the planet, when this opening happened, a seal took place and all the vessels were locked.
So that we couldn't access our higher dimensional powers.
Yes. And all of this knowledge of how to access that is within the records, within these temples, that each one of these specific ancient healers, or we would say pharaohs, have access to. And they are only a specific type of being. It's not all. And this is something that is going to start coming forth and that she will be using, but not anytime soon. We would give it in a sense saying that it would only take place in a far number of years from now, only when a specific shift has taken place, and not this shift as in the jump, but there has to be a certain amount of light beings which has shifted into this construct. But this will be, as we are being told, explained to you, and we are not allowed to give this information. But this is what she holds the key to that, and she's going to go unlock them.
Okay, so she needs to kind of access these spiritual powers, but how can she do that if her vessel has been locked together with everyone else's vessels from, accessing this power?
It's not in the sense to say that she is locked. Yes, her vessel is locked and the vessels are slowly coming back with the construct of the planet. But the more she accesses the ability to go into the room, and the more that she brings herself on that journey, the more these symbols will unlock. She will see each one specifically unlock. There is something that will take place at a later stage for her. It is to say that she will go to a physical place and she will go in there and she will receive all of the coding, but not at this time. And we will not give any more information on that because we do not want that to become something that is obsessed about.
Yes.
There is specific things that need to take place, and the thing that she needs to focus on is the access of this healing, because that information that will be brought in is going to be information that all the new healers will use in order to create the new healing. But this is not right now in your time construct. She first has to practice and truly master this ability.
Okay, and when she took mushrooms by herself, she saw herself as a bad person that hurt children. She started to vomit. She didn't want to hear that. What is this about? What was the lesson here?
It is this internal battle. The thing is, it is to understand one cannot only understand light if one doesn't understand the dark. Everywhere, in every lifetime, many of them have been good and have been bad. In order to truly be able to come in the middle and be, as we could say, more placid in nature, if this is the correct way to describe. And so this is also just a fear, but it is not in portraying that it is her. This is an energy and this is a frequency that is so tied deeply within this planet and rooted within this construct that this is one of the main things that is going to need, as we could say, mass healing. There is going to be a big exchange where this healing needs to be lifted. And if you do not see the hurt and see what it is and see that perspective, you cannot heal it.
Okay. So this kind of hurting of children, which we know is happening all the time, everywhere, it's been happening forever on this planet. Is this the kind of, collective healing that needs to take place?
Yes, it is. As well as not just hurting children now, but through all of the years. It is to say that when it becomes known of what truly happened on your planet, it is something so detrimental that many people are not going to function well in here. That is why we never give the full information. If you understand truly how dark this planet became, it is to say that now with the hurt that's going on, the planet is a lot lighter. But if one would understand the hurt that was taking place hundreds of years ago and what truly happened on the planet, it would make one sick.
Okay, so is that what she was experiencing? Or why did she have to see that in that journey?
Because she is going to help people who have gone through that, whose energy is still so raw, and she will help with that healing, but only at a later stage. As we say, the collective is not ready for that release yet, but when that release takes place, and if she sticks to the practice and receives the information, she is going to help many with that. There is a lot of healing that is going to take place, and there's a lot of physical things. And this is what we are saying. We are asking permission to give this information. They say we are allowed to tell her that because of the healing that you and Natasha are going to bring in for the planet, not only with explaining this full story, but with the physical healing and the type of healings, she will then, not in a sense be a part of it, but she will come and teach other healers. And you two will create a gathering where all healers will come together, and many healers who have come through sessions. And she will be one of those to teach, but there are others who are going to teach different types of constructs, and together everybody is going to make a new type of a industry of healing, where it's not going to be the energetical healing that you know now on your planet. It's going to be infused with a physical and an energetical and a herbal. It is going to be almost an all-in-one type of healing, which will become almost a new system of a new modality. But this is very far in the future. Yes, okay. One cannot access this now. And what we would say to her is, if she just practices well enough to access the symbols, she will see that timeline. But if she does not do that first, she will not be able to help.
And who did you need to get permission from for giving this information?
We had to ask yours and Natasha's energy streams. The thing is, as we say, every single being which has come into contact with you all has got a specific purpose in some way in the link of what's happening. And the story is going to be given, but the story has to be given specifically, we are told, and we are not allowed to now give her the information because there's nothing to do with what she needs to know now. That's why we needed to ask if we were allowed to give that information, because it is something for you guys to bring at a later stage. And if we give it now, we don't want to open doors or curiosity.
Okay, and the third time she took mushrooms, she was in an intergalactic war, and her dad seemed to have been a lion. What was that? Why did she see it? Seemed to have been there's some kind of link with the lions.
Yes, but it is more to say that there is multiple lives that she streams from, but she was more going there with him to see what he was doing. But it is not to say that she is physically involved in the wars herself. It is to explain to her that this war is taking place with those types of beings, but it's not in this space. There is a different dimensional space where it is exactly the same blueprint of your planet and all the other planets and all the extraterrestrial races. They all are there from start to finish. But this entire space that we will call for now, let us say that universe, because it is the most accurate and the easiest to describe. That universe is only for war. They are specifically, every single planet, every single type of species is in war, because that entire universe is a war universe, and it's there to learn the lessons and experience the frequencies. Some of those beings have jumped out of that universe and is now operating in other universes, which does cause chaos. But it is not to say that they are bad in nature. It is just because that's the construct where they are from. And the thing is, she has also been in that universe as well. And she has been a part of that at a time. And so has the father. And when she went back into that memory, and she was watching the memory as it was taking place, but she wasn't drawn specifically there.
Why did she have to see that in this life? What is the relevance of that life for this life?
Because it is something that is needed to understand. That there is a war, there is a battle. There's always an internal battle taking place. There's always something, there's always a yin and a yang, a day and a night, a up and a down. There is always a back and forth between two things. Energy cannot be stagnant. Energy has to move from one into the other. And this is a very important construct to understand, because these types of things and these types of beings and these types of places, it must not be looked at as bad, but she still looks at it as the perception as this is bad, it is evil, it is wrong, it is not good. And it's something to be shown to her that she needs to sit with the construct of that. She needs to be in the middle. She needs to be more neutral, because these things are not good, but they are permitted. There is a structure and a construct with it that is placed in order to allow these things to take place, to learn. But this continuous thought and feeling of it is wrong and it is not good, it is that denial. Let us take the instance with the children. It is this denial of, I could not do that. But if one looks at the perspective as when one is in that universe and one has gone for that experience, and it has been agreed upon between two energies, because each wanted to know what it felt like to be the abuser and to be the abused. This construct needs to be understood, because it is not one in negative of nature. And she has an internal battle on that, because she does not want to see the darker side of things. She only wants to see the lighter. And she's creating that split in herself, and that is going to affect her ability to heal others, because it will place judgment.
Yes, exactly.
And it is for her to go and see this, so that she can already now start to make peace with it and understand this form of structure in order to bring it forward when she uses her abilities.
Can you maybe say what happens if there wasn't dark? What would happen to light? Would it just be out of control? What would happen exactly? Why is the dark necessary?
The light would not be light. It is to say that the easiest form that we could give to her to understand, and this is not, as we would say, the most accurate in nature, but the easiest for us to give in terminology of your language, is to think of it as such. The light, when it is just light, it is still, it is dead. There is nothing. There is no construct. So the lighter dimensions doesn't exist. But when the dark came, and the dark is there, think of it as two magnets. As the one moves, the other moves. And that created that energy could start to circulate. And when energy circulates, it starts to create shape and form.
Creates life.
Yes. So if there was not a darker force to repel the lighter force to move, the lighter force could not cause creation.
Creates movement.
So the lighter force is the creation, but the darker force is the fuel for the creation.
So they both need each other in order to exist.
That is why you'll never find that the benevolent dimensions are trying to remove the darker dimensions, because they understand. It is to say the same. We would give it to you in a construct of your planet on farming. One would need manure and rotten fruits and compost in order to mix into the soil to grow a fruit tree. You cannot say that because it is manure, it is disgusting, it is dark, it is evil, or this rotten fruit and vegetation is disgusting, because through that rotten vegetation, life can stimulate.
So what is that intergalactic war about that she saw then? What is being fought over?
That war was being fought over a planetary alignment, as we would say. It was being fought with the different star systems. They were fighting over territory and what was being taken place. And there is 7 factions fighting with each other at the same time. They are all fighting for position. It is just more about who can receive what structure. And the planet that they were on and orbiting around was the planet that these 7 factions were fighting for, because it was in where they are. As we say, it is not in your time structure, but in that one, that was a planet that was holding a lot more properties to hold water and different types of things that they needed, as well as that planet, because it had high water, it had a high crystal face. And their weaponry that they use for their guns and their systems, they need this type of crystals. And also they mine it out. And there were 2 factions that were fighting to come and steal and harvest, and 4 factions that were coming through to try and protect. And the one faction was just trying to steal the water.
Who are these 7 factions? Do we know them?
It is to say that there are the reptilian in nature, but they are more a vast structure. It was not the reptiles as one would see as the Draco, but more the serpent type. But they look like snakes, but they have hands and feet, and they are quite large in nature and quite big.
Like a salamander almost.
Not almost, but similar in nature. They are different factions of, they are serpents. Their heads are quite large. And these specific ones were the type, they are not of the cobras, but they are family of the cobras. And they do have the extension coming out the side, but they have reptile-like arms, and their legs are not legs that they walk on because they still move as serpents, but it is an extra set of hands, if we could put it as such, that they use.
That's the one.
Yes. So they use with that. Then the other in nature, there was the frog people. They were there trying to get the water. There was the different the lion species, which were there, the multiple cats, if we can say, which they were fighting over to keep the planet safe. And then another faction that was there was a bit of also the reptilian, but they were more of lizard-like in nature, but they were also trying to help protect the planet, which is not this of, as we could say, bad in nature. And then the others, which were not so nice in nature, were more of, as we could say, the drone species is what we like to call them, but you would know them as the grey-like species.
Why would you call them drone species?
Because these are hybrid ones, these specific ones. They are very small in nature. They are not the tall ones, they are the little ones, and they have the darker eyes. And these ones were created in labs and being sent out, and we call them the drones.
They're little mini me's. Yeah, they do the work for the big greys.
Yes.
And who were the rest, just to get to the point?
Yes. And then moving through, then the others which were there were more like these. We do not know in your terms how to give you their explanation, but they are more like these types of bug-like beings, as we like to say. They are ants, if that is the correct one. These little ones that collect, but they are bigger in nature. They are more of human size. But they are not so good. They were trying to also take over the planet, and they were trying to do harm, specifically just those ones. And then the last ones that were there were more of these other grey-like beings, but they are not grey. They look more white, and they are very tall, and they are very nice. They were just there to aid and help the people.
Okay. So that information is suppose is one can write another book about that. Is there anything else she needs to know about that scene that she saw?
It was just for her to understand that war that is taking place there, because later on she's going to get information about that, but it is to what she's going to do for the healing, because a lot of people are still carrying those frequencies from that time and space in the now. And that is a different type of healing because it comes from a different universe. And it was just for her to see that these things do take place. But as we say, the more she focuses on just accessing this information, we will give it to her in a correct structure and format that she will fully be able to fix the picture. But because we needed to spike her curiosity, so when she does the substances, it was the easiest place to take her in order to spark the interest so that she could move forward and receive the information today.
Okay, and regarding her work, she said she doesn't really love what she does. It's quite boring. She works in a hospital in a lab. She works with a microscope. She sits all day with the microscope, but luckily in the background she can listen to, Gaia and spiritual stuff, this kind of information. That's where she found our information. She does like PAX tests, liquid research. She's a cytologist, analyst. So is there any, she said she would rather be a healer. Does she have should she continue with this work? Even she doesn't hate it, but it is a little bit monotonous. Should she be continuing with this work or focusing more on the healing work, or where should her focus lie?
Just for now, to continue with this work as she ups her abilities. And through her abilities will guide her in towards healing. She will be working in future with healing, but it is a step-for-step process. So we would not say to her, as what one would say on your planet, to quit her day job, because she needs this at this time in order to keep herself sustained. But at a later stage, she will transition out. But this job is best in nature because of the type of freedom it gives, that she could kind of work more on her things every day without being pressured to shift her mind on large focus on other things.
Yes. Okay, so it kind of amplifies or spurs her onto her spiritual kind of awakening.
And it will help her to be able to balance the two without causing conflict.
Yes. Okay, and what about her daughter? It was a couple of years ago, on a Friday she had diarrhea, and on the Sunday she died. She passed away in hospital. The doctors don't know what the cause was. She, left a 9-month-old baby behind. She was in good health, and she died in 2 days. What happened here, and why did it have to happen so quickly?
It is a sad in nature when this type of loss takes place, and we know that it is a very hard one to hear, and we immediately can feel the hurt inside of her, and we just want to first send the energy to help her, because we know that it is going to cause her to be very tearful now when hearing this. But it was just that the energy could not be held in that vessel. The little one, she couldn't hold the light. And the type of energy stream that she has is passed down into the vessel, but it wasn't taken into consideration of how the vessel would be able to absorb it. And the soul did not want to stay after it was, in fact, many times before that the vessel gave in and the reset came with the soul. And it was multiple times. And the soul asked to just not come back because it was too painful. And that was what was agreed. It was not something that was her decision in nature or even considered to discuss with her, because it was just the journey of that soul. She did not want to go through that because of the way that the frequency was not ready for the vessel. But the frequency will come again at a later stage when the energy can be held. But it is to say that these new type of babies, that is why mass healing needs to take place on the planet, and the construct has to shift, because the newer children that are here for the movement. But now the newer construct is a completely different species of human. But that species cannot move into the planet because the planet cannot let go of the lock that is placed on it. It is a very difficult in nature one to say. But she can take comfort in knowing that there was no, as we could say, harm or hurt that traumatized that soul. But the soul chose not to come back at this time. And it is a very hard thing to deal with, but she needs to make peace that it was not her decision to make.
Wait, so are you saying that the energy frequency that came into the body couldn't handle that amount of light, the actual vessel? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Why was there that dissonance? Is that kind of stuff not agreed upon before coming in?
It is, but there are certain factors that are not always taken into consideration. Because when the baby is inside of the mother's body, it comes in and out, in and out. There is no permanent structure of light to be able to take place on. And even with the little ones, when they sleep, the energy leaves the body in order to help with the adjustment.
Yes.
But this specific soul that was contracted in is one that is like her in nature. And the vessel is not the same as her vessel. It is to say that because she had multiple lives and structure where the frequency knew how to come in and out and lace itself inside of the vessel when being a child, this newer energy, which did not have multiple lives on this planet but on other planets, did not know how to regulate that frequency inside. And the vessel kept taking damage because of this type of construct that the vessel is. And it kept hurting the vessel. And it could not dim its light down smaller because then there would be no soul inside of the vessel. And then that vessel decided upon agreement that it did not want to come in at this time, it will come in at a later stage, because that type of light could not hold with the frequency of what the vessel had. And that vessel, when new babies are born, they are born to match the frequency of the energy field of the planet. And because the planet could not hold that light, the vessel could not hold that light.
So what ended up happening to the vessel?
It ended up hurting on the inside of the intestines of the baby. And therefore, they did fix it, but the actual physical trauma was still inside of the vessel. And it is to understand that even though we reset the vessel and fix the little organs, that energy field that is there, the same as what one would carry trauma from another life, still sat there, and that upset the stomach. And then the soul decided that it did not want to put more stress on the physical vessel because they could not match it coming in and out. Okay. And because of the specific type of being, they could not find a walk-in soul for it. So they decided to then terminate the project, and it would happen at a later stage.
But why did it happen when she was 29?
Because that is when it would take place. And this construct of what the child would have been, that when the child would have grown into the phase of becoming into its teens, moving up into its 20s, would have been then a new type of healer that would have come in with these abilities and construct.
Yes.
And that is why she needs to go back and unlock it and bring forth and take on that. It's not an extra responsibility, but it's almost as if she was going to teach and train her daughter for that. But it is now not to say that it's not going to take place. It is just not now that it is taking place.
Okay, so are you saying that soul's going to come back again? Will Olga know that soul then in this lifetime?
Yes, Olga will feel the familiarity from the soul and know. But it is still something that is being discussed within the contracts. We cannot tell you at this stage when or where, or if it will even be born into her family again. This is still something that's being reevaluated. They are just waiting for the next shift to open, and then they will reevaluate the situation.
And how is her daughter doing now?
The soul is happy and is at peace.
Okay.
There has been no trauma, as we say, because it was a new soul. There was no past things or past filterizations. And the soul and the vessel were in communication that was just what was best. And there was no, as we could say, hard feelings or sadness about it. They were sad that they could not live to that, but they know they're going to come back again. So they are not sad in nature.
But Olga said, she was left with lots of trauma after that, and it's very difficult to be happy. Can you give her any words of advice?
Yes, it is known that it is for her traumatic because she felt the soul bond, and she felt that she understood that soul in such a deep nature because they are of like frequency. But what we can say to her is, this is not something that we can always advise on, because this is something that gets taken so deeply within the human. And what we would want her to do is to lightly work through it, but not deny it. It is a painful experience. It is a disconnect. But we want her to take comfort in knowing that that connection will come back, and we will bring it forth again. So she could find joy in knowing that it is just something that is of circumstance. But what we will do now is we will scan the body and we will help lighten that frequency out. But it is just for her to keep that knowing in her heart that it is what's for the best, and it is something that needed to take place. And it was unfortunate for the circumstance, but just know that there is still love and there is still light around it and there is still ample opportunity to move forward. But we will scan now.
Mm-hmm.
We want her to close her eyes and put her hands on her heart. And she will feel the warm and loving frequency transport throughout her body. And know that this is a hug of love and light, and that we are allowing that soul to come and give a goodbye and let her know that she is loved and that they will meet again and she will feel that peace within herself after this experience. Evendave, evendavi.
What does that mean?
Gone for now until we meet.
Which language is that?
This was one of the first languages that was used on a different planet where these types of beings are from, where she first learned this ability before coming to Earth, and where the soul was from originally.
Okay. Beautiful.
We can move on now as the light is moving through her body.
Yes, beautiful. Okay, before we do the body scan for the health, she did say that when she started doing Kundalini yoga, she's quite. It seems like she's struggling with her hips and her knees and the right side of her body, right toe, shoulders. There's kind of like a general lack of flexibility because she was doing the yoga quite hard. What is this and how can it be healed?
This was the grief that was sitting inside of the body,
Mm-hmm.
as well as we could say, a sadness that she carries.
Mm.
But it is to say that this sadness is being lifted now, and this is why we are scanning the body. And it's sat more on the right side of the body and not on the left as one would have perceived it, even though the feminine is on the left side. But the right side is more where she projected it to and clinged into it, as well as her positioning that she puts herself in. Her body takes a lot of effect because of the type of frequency that gets stimulated through it. But it is something so minor and small that we can just move it for her now. But she has to just keep understanding that the frequency that she holds is a different type of light. So these things like the Kundalini yoga and things like this is not a negative or a bad practice, but it's not the type for her because of her fields. She does not want to unlock and activate different glands in her body because she cannot control that light. Mm-hmm. There's different ways of using it. And it's to say the same as that she has the pituitary glands inside of her hands. She has 2 behind the spine and 2 inside of the hip area. And this is just to regulate. But this is things that is going to come later and explained to her. But we do not want to explain it to her now because it's not going to make sense. And we do not want to derail the path of the way that she is going. If this makes sense of explaining.
Yes, but should she do the yoga or should she do something else then for that, activation or movement? What should she rather do then?
Yes, she can work more with the flexibility and she can do the yoga, but not practice it the way that she has been doing it. We would say of more to do it just for more flexibility and do not stand in the poses or lock in the pose because when she locks, that frequency can only travel to and from where it's going and it can cause harm. But to more do this of more dance-like in nature and slow movements. And that is the one for her. As we could say also this of working with a type of equipment where this, we do not know what it is called, but it is a type of a machine that is used. Mm-hmm. That we would say this of the ones of Pilates use this type of structure. Mm-hmm. And it looks almost as if it is a wooden board that is still and compile together, and one can lean over it and do the stands and the movements and use it as a tool to use it as flexibility. This would be a good one for her, to just practice more being upside down flexibility, to move that frequency down instead of always being in a locked position.
Okay, anything else about that right side of her body? Anything else we need to release there?
A bit of trauma, as we say, from different lives, as we would bringing forth from the time of being in the memory of the battles and things like that. But it's not things that are connected to her active life. So we will just remove it now.
Yes, what does that process look like?
She will feel the tingling coming down the side of the body. And we are just moving that energy in a movement where we are recycling it, just changing its properties. It is not one that has to get removed and replaced with something else. This vessel is getting very warm.
Should I put the fan on her?
We will just open this legs.
Should I take the sheet off?
No, it is fine like this now. It's because the vessel is feeling that healing, but this vessel has its own problem here.
Why did that happen to the vessel? It seems like there's the bladder, right? Or the
urinary tract. Urinary.
Why did that happen?
It is one that was passed on to her, but it is fine.
Why did that have to pass on?
Because they did not think or know. But it is something that happens quite regularly to humans, as we understand.
Passing, diseases around, I suppose. Okay.
Yes, but it is also lack of hydration.
Yes.
But what we'll do is we're also going to heal this vessel because it's interfering with what we are doing for her scan.
Yes. What does that look like?
It's just a ball of light that we are projecting into the area. We are just calming the bladder as well as the vessel wants to go relieve this now.
Should we take a break?
It is to say we can subside it for the body scan and for the rest of the questions.
Okay.
But if it makes us uncomfortable, we will let you know.
Okay, should we continue with the question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So with the Olga was also saying she has problems with memory. She started after her first husband. She had quite a difficult life with him. He was a drunkard and he beat her up, and but she did break contact with him. But she can't remember much as a child. I don't know if it happened when with the husband. Why does she have such a problem with her memory, and what can she do to strengthen that?
It is only because of the block of the energy that is happening inside of her mind. And yes, she did cause herself to not want to remember certain things because one does not want to always relive the moments. Mm-hmm. And it is easier in nature to just put them aside. But this is just for her to understand that, yes, the situation was not of a good one. And yes, it can cause these types of things. But this is things that is easy for her to heal by herself. But it is not to deny that aspect of herself. And know that, yes, the way that we would comfort her is to understand that because many, and what we would say, especially because of you, and for what type of frequency you bring in. The way that we will explain for her is like, we are just trying to find the right words, is that for what she brings in, although you have this type of signature that comes in, and it is a very light and it's a very powerful healing mechanism, but you cannot become a healing light or be that force of nature if you did not understand what it felt like to be hurt, what it felt like to be unhealed, what it felt like to be broken. You have to understand the frequency of brokenness in order to be able to be a healer. You cannot come in this life without that. And that situation carried you through that. But the memories are of that through that time and through that trauma, you did not know how to work with the mind. And because she did not know how to work with the mind and how to see, she created a block here. And this has just created a blockage from all of that. But once she starts using her hands and she starts to see, she will start to get her memories back. But some memories are also not of importance.
But is there anything else she can do to improve her memory? Because I suppose she doesn't really want to remember that stuff, but anything else that she could, practical stuff or stuff she actually maybe wants to remember.
That's really good that can improve the memory and the memory nature is there are certain type of fruits that can get ingested for the mind in order to take on. These ones are high in vitamin K and vitamin C, like for example of the kiwi. So there are those types of ones that can get used that lift this brain fog, as well as taking this of the coconut oil. This of the virgin one lubricates between the sheets of the brain, and the vessels seem to like that one a lot, and it helps to remove the brain fog. And this is one that she can do, taking a tablespoon of this in the evenings, and it can also help to lift and access that. But these memories are, in a way, as we can say, energetically locked. And it is for her to want to open them again. But that's why we are showing her this battle of not so nice and nice. So that when she works through things, she's going to feel everything again. And it is to say that if one does not want to feel it, one can just release it. But if she really wants to access it, she has to be prepared of how she's going to receive it.
Yes, it's going to open a can of worms, so it's maybe best to keep that can shut.
Yes.
Okay, but so she can do those supplements and practice with the hands and the eyes for the memory. Anything else about memory?
But it's also that these are not of importance. Rather to focus her mind on things that are of importance of the now. And it's to say that, yes, the memory, it is always nice to go back, but one is also continuously shifting to different bases. But also, some specific memories from her childhood was wiped on purpose, but that is because of things that took place and needed to get reset. So that is also why there is certain things that even if she tries to remember, she will not remember, and she just needs to make peace with that. It is removed for a reason.
Yes. Okay. Okay, and once a psychic told her that she was a witch and burnt because women were not allowed to be witches. Is this true, and why did that come through?
It is to say that it is true, but not in that extent of nature. It wasn't more of that she was a witch. It was she was working with herbs.
Yes.
She was more, if you would use in your terms, a herbalist.
Yes.
And because many at that time didn't understand of the nature and how to use those properties as medicine, that yes, this is the fate that she had, and she got killed for it. But it is not to say that she was a physical witch moving things and the way that many would describe. It is just to say that she was a healer. She's always had a form of healing somewhere in all of her lives. And she was just using those abilities because she could use those abilities to connect to the plants and talk to them. And at that stage, none of the beings had knowledge of the herbal properties of plants. And the plants told her. They told her and called her and said to her how to use them and what they could be used for. And she was helping many of the children in the village with that. And then they saw it as she was trying to poison them. Okay. And that is all. But yes, it is not of that it was a long life. It was a very short one, but she does not hold this trauma in this life. She let go of that very quickly when she transcended out of it.
Does she need to work with plants in this lifetime? Is there some kind of link, or is that just a curiosity?
It is when she's going to work with the healing. When she moves in the healing, she will work with the plants again. This is why this of when she was as the Pharaoh worked with the plants. And this is why when she holds the plants or the fruits and vegetables for when she helps putting that energy in to help give to the different people that she's going to help heal in her families, This is the same construct that she was using. So once she truly starts working with this practice, she will activate this, and then she will be led into how she can do it.
Okay. Okay, and she said with the, the mushrooms, she started having very bad trips or bad experiences, and now she's scared to take mushrooms. She almost has an allergy now. She starts to shake before she takes it. Is it something that she needs to proceed with, or should she?
It is for now not necessary. It is also because it is overstimulation. And again, to explain to her that she's got different glands in her vessel construct that others don't have. And they're not physical glands, they're energetical inside of her light body. And when she takes these substances, she activates that. So what we would say for her is to do none of those type in nature for now. Just to not overstimulate them until she can learn how to work with them, and then we will give her guidance from there.
Okay. And is there a reason her and I had so many communication problems we couldn't actually connect? Or was that just bad planning?
It was just this of more inhuman of nature and not of a larger one in nature, but also it was to create the frequency construct also to be right. The vessel was not doing good at that stage, so it was not for you to do sooner.
Okay.
So we could add that in as well, but there is no specific reason into that one.
Okay, but the timing worked out good in the end.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, is there any question I could have asked today that I didn't ask?
We feel that the questions were sufficient. It is just that we would want to give her a little bit of a different information of something to come through for her now, so that it is something that she can use in going in further into her practices. We would want her to do more mirror work in nature, as this is one that is going to help her. And we have found now that just moving through the vessel and through everything that we have done, that this modality is going to be easier for her to pick up her own field around her body. It is to look with her eyes open and look around, as we could say, this of a 4 fingers above from around the body, to where one would perceive the auric field, but to look between that space and the vessel and see if she can pick up the frequencies moving in that area. If she can start to pick up the movements of that, then she can place her hands up towards the mirror and try to absorb that frequency through her hands. And this will help stimulate her abilities a lot quicker as well.
So are you saying she's standing in front of a physical mirror and then she's visualizing the kind of auric field, and then she's doing the projections from the hands? So how does that work?
Yes. So when she is looking at the physical field, she is seeing it. And when she starts to see the patterns move around the field, she can lift her hands. And when she looks at it with her eyes, visualize that what she is seeing with her eyes is being seen and absorbed in through the hands, which is going to help that to start to take place. And that will start to perceive more colors and movement that she will start to take in.
Okay, so she's training the eyes of the hands then to be more like the hands of their face.
Yes, because these two glands mimic the pituitary gland.
Okay.
So they work on the same structure. That is why it works exactly the same as the third eye. But just it's because the points where it opens is inside of her hands and not like others where the 2 points are on top of this part of the head. It is more that she has them in her hands and she needs to stimulate and throw them through. This is just an easier way for us to get her to start to see and use that ability so she can start to use it and gain access to us to receive information. We thought that this would be more practical.
Okay. And that's a physical mirror that we have on this planet, right? That she's doing this process with.
Yes. Okay. Because if she trains the physical eye to see it, and then she starts to move her perception from her eyes into her hands. The easiest way that we would say it is for her to stare at this and see it, and then give a blank stare and look at the space. And as she's looking at the space, to start to feel that she's seeing is actually coming through her hands. She can lift her hands higher up to give her that illusion so that she can stimulate that connection.
Yes. I think there were movies like that where the people hold their hands up. They don't have eyes and the eyes are in the hands. There was a movie like that. Would it help to watch something like that to entrain that visual?
It is to say she could use any modality she likes in order to retrain that. Even if she would find that helpful, she could watch something like that. But it is more to physically create the practice of doing it and just mimicking. Even if she would like to put the one hand above the one eye and look out the other eye and visualize that she's using this one, that is also fine in nature. But it is to say that they work better when both is activated.
Okay. Any other last messages for her today?
We are very excited for her journey and for what we can achieve, and that she is closer than what she thinks. She has all the puzzle pieces now, and it is just to put them into place and put them forward. And we have nothing but joy and love, and we are excited for this journey ahead. And we would prefer to give her these messages ourselves, but we know that it is something to build towards. But the more that she practices and the more that she uses her hands, she will find that she will start to have these experiences by herself, and then we will give her the next piece of information. We leave you now with love and light, and know that we are always there.
Yes, thank you very much.